Ever since the second game that simulated the oiled-up grappling of the then WWF, people have been arguing about which wrestling game is the greatest of all time. But why trust the opinions of someone who's never suplexed anyone in real life? Here are the 8 best wrestling games according to actual WWE wrestlers. No really, we asked them and none of them stole our lunch money for being a massive nerd. I know, I'm as surprised as you are.
I spent many hours playing WrestleMania 2000 or No Mercy on the 64.
You want to go first? You know mine. WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah, WrestleMania 2000.
People try to say No Mercy is better than WrestleMania 2000. No Mercy is fantastic. They're all fantastic. The grappling system, the whole setup, being able to block the chest out, crouching down, hitting them where it hurts. Ooh. WrestleMania 2000 is the goods.
Back in the year 1999, WrestleMania 2000 seemed like an impossibly futuristic occasion. That's why it got a video game all to itself almost 6 months before the event. THQ's first attempt at a WWF game on N64 was based heavily on its previous WCW vs NWO Revenge title, but with an added dose of WWF glitz. Heavily pixelated glitz, yes, but glitz all the same. Visuals weren't exactly this game's strong point, and the Rock'em Sock'em wrestlers looked blocky even in 1999, but purists consider the grappling and wrestling games developed by Aki to be the very best in the business. And that's with the fact that when you block in the game, your character puffs their chest out like an oiled up pigeon. I mean, I'd have thought that's one of the places you'd want to avoid getting hit, but what do I know? The central Road to WrestleMania career mode was excellent too, giving you a year before the titular event to work your way up to a contender for the title. Along the way you developed feuds with other wrestlers, won belts and unlocked secret characters for use in exhibition mode. And best of all, if you played as Albert, you could steal a portable tattoo kit from the crowd and beat someone over the head with it. Because someone in that audience never knows when they might need to ink a tattoo.
So what's your favorite?
Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. If you've never played it, it's an all-Japan Japanese game, but by far, in my opinion, one of the best.
Yeah?
Easily one of the best.
Speak freely here, man.
That's a game that I still have. I've got many copies at my house because when I was in Japan, I just picked up a copy every time I saw it. So yeah, it's one of the best games I've ever played.
Alright AJ Massive Hipster Styles. To be fair to AJ, he spent a good proportion of his career wrestling in Japan, so it's perhaps unsurprising that he's chosen Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 as his favourite. Built by the same development team as WrestleMania 2000 at the same time, it features a lineup entirely taken from All Japan Pro Wrestling. That means you're unlikely to have heard of or be able to pronounce the names of any of the wrestlers. I shall call him Ian Wrestling. On the plus side though, it features Aki's trademark grappling gameplay, spectacular arenas including the awesome Kawasaki Stadium, and a few illicit wrestling moves like the Burning Hammer that are apparently banned from the WWE. Considering they let Randy Orton hoof people in the head when they were helpless on the floor only a few years ago, I don't see what all the fuss is about. Of course, if you want to play Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, then, like AJ Styles, you're going to need to be able to source a cartridge from Japan and read Japanese. I mean, unless you could think of an alternative way to play the game, and someone had hacked that alternative way to play the game to change the menus to English.
WrestleMania 2000.
Yes, but I think the evolution in that game was maybe No Mercy.
On the N64?
On the N64, yeah, and those games I was a big fan of as a kid.
The grappling system was just very simple. It was also kind of the first time that you really got to see the characters in 3 dimensions instead of like kind of flat on the surface. So it was just the graphics were updated. It was very cool, but also the grappling system was simple and elegant all at the same time. It was very easy to be like anybody could pick it up. If you were a newbie and didn't know how to play games, you could get into it, or if you were really good and experienced, it had the depth to keep you motivated.
The sequel to WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, is equally beloved. It represents the pinnacle of Aki's WWF games before they went off to make Def Jam games and accurately simulate what it would be like if you kicked Sean Paul in front of a subway train. Actually, way more harrowing than I expected. No Mercy improved on every element of WrestleMania 2000, increasing the roster, improving the visuals, and increasing the fluidity of the combat. The career mode introduced branching storylines, making this the Mass Effect of wrestling games, only with less romancing. Which, I mean, would have been revolutionary for the genre, if nothing else. Creator Wrestler also got an enormous overhaul, and you could spend your money on new outfit items in the SmackDown Mall, which certainly has a better ring to it than the Sunday Night Heat flea market. And at least after the whole tattoo kit thing in WrestleMania 2000, you could assault your opponents with more realistic weapons, like this giant wedge of cheese. You know, given that people accuse wrestling of being fake, you're really not helping yourself here.
WrestleFest, arcade wrestling game, you know what I mean? Arcades, I have a very strong affinity to arcades because you don't see them that much anymore. You know, it was a big part of culture growing up. You'd go down to the Bowl-O-Drome, you know, and play arcade games with your local friends and everything, and you don't do that anymore. It's all online. Everyone's talking trash on the headsets, on the Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? And it's a lost art.
My first experience was WrestleFest, the arcade game. I love that one because you could be Ultimate Warrior in it, and that was like one of the first games where you could be Warrior.
Contributing to more smashed buttons than perhaps any arcade game in history, thanks to its requirement that you hammer those buttons just to stand up, arcade game WWF WrestleFest was the sequel to WWF Superstars, and introduced bigger, bolder graphics and, crucially, 4-player matches. The downside of this game, designed to fleece arcade goers of money, is that if you get beaten up enough, you run out of energy and have to pump coins into the machine mid-match to keep your hobbled wrestler limping along. Not sure if that's a damning indictment of WWF's wellness policy in the early 90s or just mercenary game design, but either way, it kinda sucks. Otherwise, for fans of technical wrestling, this is the pinnacle of WWE's arcade output. The next time the company's wrestlers appeared in the arcade, it was in the spectacular Mortal Kombat-esque hybrid WWF WrestleMania the arcade game from 1995, where The Undertaker could smash people over the head with a spectral gravestone. What have you got, Hulk Hogan? A leg drop. Sticking with that, huh?
Do you have a particular favorite?
Man, I really liked the Royal Rumble and Raw games for the Super Nintendo.
I remember like being a teenager dying to get my hands on WWE Raw. That's it, fella, go on! Get out of here!
WWF Royal Rumble and WWF Raw a year later were firm favourites among SNES and Genesis owning Wrestle fans. Fluid animation and 6 wrestlers in the ring at once meant it reflected what fans saw on television more closely than ever before. It helped that the sprites were a bit more realistically proportioned than in WWF WrestleFest, though it does look like Yokozuna has been on some sort of crash diet. As a bit of trivia, Royal Rumble featured a strange split in the roster, with different wrestlers exclusive to the SNES and Genesis versions of the game. So if, for example, you were a fan of Hulk Hogan or Hacksaw Jim Duggan and you owned a SNES, you were shit out of luck. Hey, at least you still got Crush. Yay.
Speaking of retro games, N64, WW NITRO, oh, can I say WW? Yeah, we own it, that's right, on the WWE Network, $49.99, all the WW you want.
Did you rehearse that?
I rehearsed that, that's right.
Okay, Cesaro's choice of WCW Nitro isn't traditionally considered the best wrestling game on the N64. It's not even traditionally considered the best WCW game on the N64. But do you want to argue the point with a 6'5" Swiss Jason Statham? No, I didn't think so. The game actually did a decent job of recreating the atmosphere of a WCW live show on the N64's mid-90s technology. It was also faster paced than most wrestling games of the time, opting for a SmackDown-style direct move system rather than forcing you to tie up in a grapple first like most other wrestling games at the time. Downsides? Well, there was the limited moveset and selection of modes, and this particularly unpleasant sound effect for the ab stretch. But if you want to hear a man say the word Frankensteiner over and over again, boy do we have the wrestling game for you.
The Frankensteiner! The Frankensteiner! The Frankensteiner!
The N64 version specifically, which Cesaro referred to, came a year after the PlayStation version and featured an updated roster, but was sadly missing the ludicrous character selection rants from WCW wrestlers.
Hey there! How'd you like to get power bombed? Come on, pick me. I'm begging you, pick me. Please pick me.
I'm guessing there wasn't time for a second take.
WWE Attitude, right? Yeah.
Attitude was a cool game. Austin on the cover, that was awesome.
That's right, Stone Cold Steve Austin was on the cover of WWF Attitude, named after the Attitude Era that helped the company see off the challenge from rival promoter WCW and establish dominance in professional wrestling. Like its predecessor Warzone, Attitude offered dazzling photorealistic recreations of your favourite grapplers. Of course, this being 1999, photorealistic means an actual photo of The Rock's face smeared across a handful of polygons. I'm sure the people's eyebrow is in there somewhere. The animation wasn't quite up to the standard of the character models though. Although the moves were motion captured, apparently by the Hardy Boys, the transitions between moves were stilted. Still, it's good to know they went to the trouble of motion capturing this drunken karate kick for Steve Blackman's entrance. The best part of Attitude was the Creation Suite, which set the standard for wrestling games all the way up to WWE 2K18. You could construct whatever monstrous freak of nature your heart desired in the Create a Wrestler mode and schedule a series of matches in pay-per-view mode. Where Attitude was somewhat lacking was in the atmosphere. Even during the biggest shows in your career mode, only about 5 people have turned up to watch, and it feels like you're wrestling in a gloomy warehouse rather than a packed stadium.
3.
It doesn't help that you'll occasionally hear a single fan shout out a catchphrase in an otherwise silent crowd. You know, I think I can almost hear the tumbleweed.
Speaking of great wrestling games, what about WWE 2K18? What a tremendous game! Largest roster ever! You'll never see a bigger roster until maybe next year, maybe the following year. It might expand. I don't know yet.
I just seen some demos of the guys playing upstairs, and honestly, it was AJ playing as himself against, I think it was Tyler Breeze playing as Neville, and I thought they were actually watching a match. So it was that realistic, you know.
You know, with the new graphics engine, that's a big deal. So I think it's, you know, to get out and play with it and see for yourself what you think, man. I think it's always cool when they're able to upgrade the little things that make it a little bit better each year. And you also got new characters this year as well. You know, guys who aren't even in the game, like Bobby Roode.
Yeah.
You know, I know him well, and I'm glad to see he's now in the WWE game, let alone the WWE, but now he's in the game. So I think that's really cool.
And how does it feel to be the cover athlete this year?
It's great. Honestly, you know, I was stoked when they asked me. They said, hey, you've been complaining about it for the last few years, putting, you know, these old guys on here, so we're going to give it to you this year. So I was stoked to be able to represent my generation as one of the first to do that. Shut up. God. We're not on stage anymore.
Have you guys had a chance to check out 2K18 yet?
I actually did. I tried to. They had a little demo version for us. Unfortunately, I couldn't play with Sheamus or myself.
We couldn't play with each other for some reason. It's weird.
It's very weird.
Couldn't play with each other.
It's even weirder if you think about that.
I don't want to think about it.
No, me neither. So it actually plays phenomenal. Oh, really? What's going on? Wow, really? All of a sudden. 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 Please, guys. Save it for Sunday. He ran into you. I don't know why you're so mad at this. Save it for Sunday. Very cute.
Of course, it's not out yet, but at this pre-SummerSlam party, the WWE wrestlers were able to get their hands on an early version of WWE 2K18, and they came away suitably impressed. While we've only had access to the same limited preview version, there are some immediate improvements over 2K17. For a start, there are tons of additional incidental animations that mean the action is more fluid and varied. A general graphical overhaul plus 4K support if you have an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro means these are the most realistic and probably sweatiest wrestlers ever seen in a video game. They've even got Jinder Mahal's abs in there.
Got my abs in the video game.
The things they can do with graphics today.
I guess we'll just have to settle in and enjoy the action.
There's also a new carry mechanic that lets you hoist a wrestler into one of a handful of carries and then maneuver them into position for an even more devastating move.
On the shoulders here, and it could be a long way down from there. John.
Or just walk them around the ring a bit for giggles. Most importantly, the game features the largest roster of any WWE wrestling game ever, and most importantly, that roster includes Breezango.
On the way to the ring, at a combined weight of 456 pounds, Fandango in Tyler Breeze.
So there you have it, no mention of the old SmackDown series or the legendary Saturday Night Slam Masters at all among the professionals, who seem to prefer the more technical games. Did your favourite wrestling game make the cut? Let us know in the comments and like and subscribe for more from Outside Xbox.